Welcome back to Costume Co. A huge shout out to everyone who's been watching my Game of Thrones content. I've been reading all of your comments, so please keep them coming. And I'll be following up on the jewelry video and ranking more character costumes soon. I also want to do a shout out to my patrons on Patreon for helping me bring you more content. Exciting news for House of the Dragon fans. One of Daemon Targaryen's screen matched dragon riding costumes from Season 1 recently went up for auction at Prop Store. The piece was donated as part of an online charity auction organized by the Costume Designers Guild Awards and Prop Store, featuring 55 lots in total. Proceeds from the auction will support the IATSE Entertainment Union Members Foundation, helping those affected by the recent devastating wildfires in Los Angeles. Now, according to Prop Store, this is the first time a major piece from House of the Dragon has been publicly available for auction. And I've been covering the Game of Thrones costumes and props that went up for sale through Heritage Auctions back in October, including 4 pieces purchased by friend of the show, William Swift, owner and operator of the Enchanted Fantasy Film Museum in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And William has promised to give us a virtual tour of those pieces in an upcoming live stream, so stay tuned for that. Meanwhile, a source has hinted that Prop Store is likely to auction off more House of the Dragon costumes and props in the future, so I'll keep you updated as I learn more. Now let's take a closer look at Daemon's costume, designed by House of the Dragon Season 1 costume designer Jenny Tamim. What's wild is that this incredibly elaborate outfit was only featured once in Episode 6, The Princess and the Queen, while Daemon rides Caraxes in service of Prince Regio Heratus in Pentos. And I'll note that it's rare to see a costume that is this detailed used so briefly, as principal characters in House of the Dragon typically wear their costumes across multiple episodes due to the immense cost of making them. Now, according to Prop Store, the costume is screen matched to a close-up shot just before Daemon flies through an aerial fireball from Laena Velarion's dragon, Vhagar, while entertaining Pentoshi aristocrats. Now, they note that the weathering of the piping on the chest of the sleeveless tunic, the way the unique pattern lays across the center of the tunic, and the unique hand-laid placement of the decorations all align perfectly with the on-screen version. Now, this costume sold for $53,550, which sounds like a lot of money, but I'd argue that the auction price was an absolute steal. Beyond the materials, the sheer amount of craftsmanship that went into this costume is staggering. From drafting and cutting the fabric to sewing, embellishing, embroidering, and breaking it all down for realism, not to mention the inclusion of the boots, belt, and gauntlets, the labor alone likely adds up to tens of thousands of dollars. And that's all before Matt Smith even put it on. Now, one possible reason this costume only appeared once comes from series showrunner Ryan Condal, who explained, "If this costume seems a little flamboyant for someone like Daemon Targaryen, these were dragon-riding leathers that he had commissioned specifically for his period of service to Prince Regio Heratus of Pentos while he lived there with his wife Laena and his daughters Baela and Rhaena. Prince Regio paid Daemon and Laena handsomely to guard Pentos with their dragons and ensure his interests against the Triarchy, a dangerous alliance of 3 rival states in Essos. Daemon wanted something that spoke loudly to his Targaryen lineage, so his patron would feel he was getting his coin's worth. This costume does just that." Hey, and if you're enjoying this content, please take a moment to give this video a thumbs up. That will let me know that you would like to see more content like this. Now, one of my favorite things about costumes going to auction are the high-resolution photos that reveal every intricate detail. The auction house describes Daemon's costume as consisting of a long sleeveless tunic, a black elasticated undershirt, a pair of black pants, leather lace-up boots, a leather belt, and a pair of leather gloves. The tunic is richly decorated with custom embroidery featuring the Targaryen sigil at the center of the back, while metal adornments resembling dragon scales accent the back and shoulders. Daemon's long-line doublet, as I've mentioned before, follows the fashionable style of coats worn by nobles in House of the Dragon and continuing on into Game of Thrones. The color palette and sigil on his costume, featured on the back of the coat and on his gauntlets, are drawn from his Targaryen coat of arms, which is a red, three-headed dragon on black. Now, while author George R. R. Martin has mentioned that the dragon should technically have two legs, the four-legged version remains canon in the Westerosi universe, as it was prominently featured on the costumes of both Viserys and Rhaegar Targaryen in Game of Thrones. Now, the red brocade lining of Daemon's jacket is the same fabric used to line the coat worn by his brother, King Viserys, during the royal hunt. And interestingly, this fabric was also used, though in a different colorway, for Rhaenyra's fealty cloak and Alicent's wedding gown when she married Viserys, though that scene was ultimately cut. And the fabric was custom created for the show by Top Fabric of Soho in London. The scale embellishments and embroidery on this costume, crafted by Michelle Carragher and her very talented team, are reminiscent of Daenerys' Dragonstone arrival costume, also embellished by Carragher. If you look closely, you'll notice that portions of the scales and ornamentation have been highlighted with red paint, adding depth and texture to the design. The dragon-shaped fasteners on the front of the coat aren't unique to this outfit. They were also used by the wardrobe team on several of Daemon's other coats, as well as on costumes for principal characters like Rhaenyra and Alicent, although Alicent's were gold. And while it's disappointing that this stunning costume didn't get more screen time, it did at least have a moment in the spotlight as part of the Entertainment Weekly promotional spread leading up to the House of the Dragon Season 1. Now, with House of the Dragon likely on pause until 2026, we're in for a bit of a Westerosi dry spell, but don't worry, A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms arrives on June 15, 2025, and I'll be covering it in full. Plus, I've got more House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones content coming your way to keep the excitement alive. Now, a huge shout out to my amazing patrons for making this video possible, and to all of you for spending time with me. I'll see you in the next video.